Hi everybody, welcome back to Raina Teachings. My name is Camacho and I channel a beautiful being named Raina. Together we help you to heal, grow, and expand your consciousness. Before we get started, our subject today, it's story time today. I'm going to tell you all about my near-death experiences that I have had. I've had 3 near-death experiences, and I may actually break it up into 2 videos. So this will be part 1 and there will be a part 2. But before I get started, please like and subscribe below and hit the bell to be notified of future videos. If you're finding value out of our videos, it helps us to continue to make more videos. And if you are an Instagram person, go ahead and follow us on Instagram, where I post things that you will not find here on YouTube. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I've had a multitude of different spiritual experiences in my life, but 3 of them have been near-death experiences, and I wanted to make this video for those of you who have also had near-death experiences. So I know you may feel like you can't tell anyone, or maybe you did tell some people and they gave you a bunch of excuses and science as to how that might have happened with your brain. And so I'm here to tell you that yes, near-death experiences are real. They're also very confronting, very, very confronting. The first one that I ever had, I was actually only 18 months old. When I was a kid, I used to have febrile seizures. And for you moms out there that might have kids that have febrile seizures, you know how scary those are. For those of you that don't know what that is, it's a seizure that children get from too high of a fever. It's very scary. It's very life-threatening. My own son has also had some of these as well, which I knew would happen because I had them myself. So it's something that my mom had to deal with. And my mom was a single mom. She didn't have a car either. So if we had to go to the bank, my mom had to put us in the stroller and we had to walk to the bank. And she did this one summer day in July. My twin sister and I were kind of sick, but she didn't realize how sick I was. And come to find out later, I did have pneumonia. So being in the stroller, in the hot sun, walking to the bank was not a good thing for me. We got to the bank, and before she knew it, I was in a convulsion. I had turned purple, and a woman that was standing in line noticed and said something. And of course, the bank teller called 911, and off they whisked me to the hospital. That part of it I was told because I don't remember that part of it. All I remember is the spiritual part of the experience. So there's several things that happened to me. This is where I had the going to the light experience. It is a real thing. It does happen. I remember going to the light, and there were 3 beings at the end of this light tunnel, and it did kind of go up like this, sort of into the sky. And I think at the time that might have been my understanding, you know, of what heaven was or something. That's what I think. But I got to the end of this tunnel, and the first being was a man, and the other 2 beings, there was another man and a female being that were standing on either side of him. And it was like mental telepathy. There was no talking with their mouths or anything, but I was there with them, and they explained to me that I was going to go back. So it wasn't like I was asked if I wanted to stay or anything like that. They told me that I would be going back and that things about my life would be difficult. I also knew that my twin sister really needed me to come back. I knew that my mom really needed me to come back. And I felt very calm. I felt okay while I was there. I didn't feel scared or anything like that. But then the next thing you know, I woke up in the hospital, and I remember crying. I still had a very high fever. I was in some type of crib, and I was standing and crying. I wanted to know where my mom was. I wanted to know where my sister was. And kind of the human part of me came back in. But I never forgot that experience that I had. And I definitely felt different. I was in the hospital for a total of 2 weeks. My mom would come and visit me, And so would some other beings. So I also got visited by other beings that I thought were nurses, but in hindsight, they were not. They were spirits. And that was my first introduction into the spirit world. I was very, very young. But what my mom tells me is that when I came home, the child that went to the hospital and the child that came home were very different. She said that I started having psychic phenomena after that experience. And I do remember being very young and, telling my mom things that I couldn't have known. And my mom was not open to these things. So it did scare her, and she did the whole, oh, it's your imagination and that sort of thing to me. I would even correct her and her friends if they were telling a story and the story was not correct. I didn't understand that sometimes adults get things wrong, or they maybe even aren't telling the truth. And I would correct them, and she used to get very upset with me. But I came back with more psychic phenomena or psychic ability. My next near-death experience did not happen to me until I was an adult. And with this next near-death experience, I had two near-death experiences only 1 week apart. So I will tell you part of it, and then I will save the rest for the next video. So I was an adult. I was 31 years old, and I had my first pregnancy with my husband. So it wasn't going very well, and I was having a lot of pain, and I come to find out I had an ectopic pregnancy. And there were I was in the throes of my spiritual awakening. I was even doing readings and healings and things like that for other people at this point. So I had had a lot of spiritual experiences, and my spiritual awakening had already been underway. But with the onset of this pregnancy, it was very clear that something was wrong, and it just really wasn't time yet for my son to come. And I was also having all kinds of visions about him, what he looked like, and I saw him all over our apartment constantly. But I was getting to know my stepdaughters. So my husband came with 2 children, and I really needed to bond with them. So I believe Spirit, didn't allow my son to come through right away because I needed to bond with these little girls. So from that perspective, I'm glad that it happened. But so I ended up first having, I had symptoms of miscarriage, and I had a DNC. But when I was there, one of the doctors looked at me and he said, if you go home and you still have pain, please go to the ER. And I said, okay. And I went home and I still felt pregnant. And I told my husband, I am still pregnant. And he just thought I was sad or having some type of emotional experience from what I had just been through, but I could feel it. I could feel the baby's energy, and I was still continuing to have this pain on the right-hand side of my body. So this went on for about a week, and I had made an appointment. I was moving forward with what I needed to do, but there was just delays for whatever reason. And this one day I had 5 clients that day. I was doing readings, and 3 of the clients I had that day were nurses. What are the odds on this day? And one of them looked at me and said, Lori, you're too white. And I said, I know. I said, my face is very white. And I said, I feel kind of like I'm not here. But I didn't realize what was happening until afterwards. So I did my readings. I saw 5 clients that day. And then I went home, and as I walked up the stairs to my apartment, my heart skipped a beat as if there wasn't enough blood in my body. And I looked down and I realized my stomach had grown in the day, but there was nothing coming out of me. I wasn't bleeding anymore or anything like that because I had had a DNC. So I thought, what is this? But as I got to the top of the stairs, I had a very, very confronting vision. And all of a sudden I saw myself waking up at 1 a.m. And by this time it was maybe 5 p.m. I saw myself waking up at 1 a.m. and everything was black. And the message in that I knew was that I was going to die if I did not go to the ER. So I very calmly went into my apartment. I called my husband at our metaphysical bookstore that we own. And I told him, I said, you need to come home and take me to the hospital. I'm pretty sure I'm bleeding to death. And I remember his words. He said, Lori, why are you so calm? And I said, I don't know. I said, it's just happening, and I just need you to come and get me. And I want to talk about that for a minute. When something is really an emergency, when spirit is really trying to get you to do something, they are calm. There will be an urgent feeling to it, but you are so calm, cool, and collected because spirit needs you to be so that you can execute what you need to do in order to get yourself help. So that's what I did. We have another wonderful psychic at our store named Michelle, and she got on the phone, and she's also happens to be a medical intuitive, and she could see what was going on, and she said, Lori, you have to go to the hospital. She said, I can see that you're bleeding internally. There's blood everywhere, and you're not going to make it if you don't go. So my husband came home and got me. We went to the hospital, and we waited for a really, really long time. And the nurses even laughed at me. So I remember one of them laughing and saying, well, you just need an ultrasound. And I said, yes, I do. And she said, well, you can make an appointment with your doctor to do that. And I remember getting upset because they were trying to not admit me basically to the hospital. And my husband looked at me and he said, what do you want to do? And the nurses said, I can admit you, but I'm not sure what they'll do. And I said, I'm having signs of an ectopic pregnancy. I need to be admitted. So she admitted me, and I was in the back of that ER room for a really long time. So now it's maybe 7 p.m. at night. And, they sent me a resident. So at this particular hospital that I don't know why I went to this hospital, but I was just guided to go to a hospital that was actually a little bit further away from where we live, and not a hospital I would normally go to. But I found out that it was a teaching hospital. And they were really, really good, particularly with OB/GYN stuff. So they sent me a resident, a doctor that was, doing her residency. And she was very, very thorough, and ended up doing a ultrasound on me. And that ultrasound revealed that I, in fact, had an ectopic pregnancy in my right hand tube that had cracked but hadn't completely bursted yet. But as they were doing the ultrasound, tears were flowing out of my eyes, but I wasn't crying per se. So then all of a sudden it was rush, 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 and I heard my husband kind of, yelling at somebody. He was trying to get somebody's attention because he was scared about something that was happening. And the ultrasound had hit my tube and actually bursted it the rest of the way open. So by this time it was very, very late. A nurse came in, a male nurse, and he put an IV in. And it was like putting an IV in a piece of cardboard. I was so dehydrated and had lost so much blood that my skin wasn't normal. So it was hard to get an IV. And he said, you're going to have a procedure. And it was 1 a.m. So just in the vision, it was, I had seen myself as waking up at 1 a.m. and I was dying. So it was almost 1 a.m. And I remember being wheeled into the OR, the operating room. And I had this thought, and the thought was, oh my God, I might not wake up, and I have no control anymore. I have to just trust all these people. And as I had that thought, they were giving me the anesthesia. The whole entire team, I remember, were women, including the head surgeon, and the anesthesiologist was a male doctor. And at that point, I went out. And I went out immediately. I went out through my crown and sat on the tools. So I remember sitting on the tools, watching my surgery. So I will end this video here, and I will talk about the rest of this experience in part 2.